Okay, hello to the world out there. This is the second episode, or maybe not, because I don't know how we're going to edit this, but this is a second day of recording, let's put it that way, for the Knuckleheads podcast, which is being recorded today, Friday, what day is it?
February 9th.
Thank you. Friday, February 9th in the 604 studios in the headquarters of 604 Records in beautiful Vancouver, British Columbia. Now, we may never get a Stanley Cup, but Toronto will never get a place that looks like Vancouver. We get to look out the window and see mountains. They get to look out the window and see
buildings, nothing but buildings.
Right.
And I grew up in both Scarborough and North York. And guess what? It was all buildings. And I told you this before as well about the city, is that despite being a Torontonian, when my family moved to Vancouver, I can escape from the city life anytime I want. Grouse Mountain, go to Bunton Lake, whatever it is in the summer.
Well, that's what I've often said about Toronto versus Vancouver.
And ever since then, my heart's belonged to this city. Like, I can always find a way to escape every now and then.
Well, the thing about Toronto, and I lived there for 7 years. I went to law school in Toronto and became a lawyer in Toronto. And I love Toronto. I'm not one of those Vancouverites who hates Toronto. I love Toronto in large part because, it's kind of where I became a human, but a lot of firsts for me in that city. First girlfriend, first time living on my own, first job, blah, blah, blah. But that was something that was always very, like that was very clear to me right from the beginning, which is, in Vancouver, even if you're not an outdoors person, and I'm really not, I don't go camping. In fact, I'm morally opposed to camping, but that's we can save that for another episode.
Go for another episode. Anti-camping episode.
Anti-camping episode. But, in Vancouver, you're 10 minutes from the ocean, almost anywhere that you are. I mean, even where we are in Vancouver, which is an area called Strathcona Railtown, very industrial sort of area, but nonetheless, you can walk 5 minutes from here and hey, there's a Pacific Ocean. You look up, there's the snow-capped mountains. The city has a way of getting into your blood. And I used to say when I was in Toronto, people were like, are you ever going to move back? And I'm like, well, I have to die in Vancouver. So yes, eventually that's where I'm going to go. Oh, of course, my phone's ringing. Oh, it's our good friend Isaac. So anyways, I digress, and that's kind of I always digress, but this is the second day of recording, and I'm here with my co-host, Isaiah Khan, and we're excited to sort of get into it. I'll say that just before we came on today, I had a chance to look at to look at the clip we've already posted, because I guess we've started to post the episodes that we've already recorded. And I don't know, I guess we're going to keep recording, video recording, but I have to be honest, I kind of looked at it and you can fool yourself about all sorts of things. And then you see yourself on video and you're like, oh, wow, I'm fucking old. Oh, wow, I'm fucking fat. I'm old and fat.
I think I feel I'm 20.
Yeah, but at least you're young and fat, I mean, and I was more fat. I mean, for anybody who knows me knows I've lost a lot of weight. I've lost 50 pounds.
You're super healthy.
But I'm still fat, and I'm sort of looking at this thing going, oh God, and my wife made some fucking shitty joke about, well, if you want, we can get you into, Grecian, I'll get you some Grecian formula for men or whatever, that stuff. And I don't give a shit about going gray. I'm just glad I got my hair, but, I don't know, man. I looked at that thing and went, I'm. Maybe we shouldn't be doing this on video. But I'll let it for now. I'll let it go. And then one more digression, and we can get into what's going on in Canucks land. We're always trying to wear Canucks sort of related stuff for this. And where's the Canuck? Oh, there it is. So, when you have seasons tickets, one of the things that they do for you at the end of the year is they have these sales where it's all the sort of excess leftover stuff that people didn't buy, and also some Canucks players stuff. There's some cool stuff, but basically you come in, it's just season ticket holders, and you get to sort of pick through all this stuff. And so I bought this, I don't know, maybe 4 years ago.
I was there 4 years ago. I know this jacket. Yeah. 47 brand. So they're actually a hat brand.
Oh,
first of all, yeah, 47's a hat
so this
style.
would have been 7 or 8 years ago?
Yeah, this would have been 7 or 8 years ago,
like,
just around that
if
time.
If you want to have some idea of how often I've worn it, the tag's still on it, right? Like, this is the ugliest piece of shit I've ever... I love the Canucks. I love the logo, but just because something's got a logo on it doesn't mean it looks good. You know, when you're overweight, you sort of want to buy stuff to make it seem like, you know, to sort of not accentuate that. This is one of those things that like accentuates the fact that you're overweight. Maybe we should offer this up as some kind of a fucking prize for, I don't know. We can think about that.
Well,
like,
actually, yeah, you know what? We do have a lot of Canucks perks over here, we can say, and we can do a prize giveaway, actually. That's actually a great idea. We'll do a
I'm going to take it off and put on the shirt I was actually wearing because I can't even
move in that.
I mean, this is not a good way to advertise a potential prize, but it even feels yucky. Like, it's just like, what? Feel the material. What is that?
It's kind of
Kevlar. What the fuck is this?
No, it's like windbreaker material that's supposed to be accustomed to rain. So it's kind of like the Stormbreaker jackets.
Bad scene. This thing is a bad fucking scene. See, look, it's just like, I'm looking at this. The mirror here, you can't see on the camera, but yeah, no, this is not good. So potentially a prize. It's not game worn, but it's podcast worn.
No, it's seasoned. It's seasoned. It's seasoned. That's what it is. It's
I'm going to put on the actual shirt, which is designed to not show your man tits and so forth. You know?
Can I be honest about something?
What?
That's why I put on this sweater, dude.
Yeah.
I was looking at myself. I was like, thank God for Jonathan's face being on my shirt, or else my nips would have just been showing up last episode. So I wore this sweater for the same reason.
Yeah, there you go. Well, you know, we're doing our best here.
You know,
let's face it, neither of us are oil paintings. You know what I'm saying? So got to do our best here. All right. Let's talk about.
I was actually going to say you've had a pretty hectic week, and as of today, February 9th. Yeah, you did. And I'll tell you why.
I may have forgotten.
Yeah, it's well, you haven't forgotten. You're just always busy. But as of today, to the day of this recording, Friday, February 9th, 604 signed a new country artist.
That's
Allison
true.
Daniels.
That is true.
And that has been quite the buzz in the office. And I just wanted to say, floor is yours to say, welcome to the 604 family. Okay,
there you go. So yeah, I'm glad we're not one of those like YouTube podcasts that's going to sit here for 20 minutes talking about, thank you, Kathleen, for donating $5. Thank you, Peter, for your donation of $6.40. Fuck that. Let's just talk about the Canucks. So weird week because there was a great game and a horrible game.
Yeah, we'll start off with the good game first.
Carolina.
Yeah, and you know what? To recap the week. So as this is recording, Friday, February 9th, the Canucks' first game of the week after the All-Star break was against Carolina. And the one point you pointed out in the first episode was that power play is going to look a whole lot different with Elias Lindholm there. And that's exactly what we saw. Quinn Hughes was taking shots meant for Lindholm's stick, not to hit the net. And those two power play goals were a sign of prosperity for the special teams unit, in my opinion.
Yeah, I love the first one in particular where, I mean, that puck was going well wide. Mm-hmm. And how did he, I mean, somehow he hooks it back into the net, which I was just like, you know, because it's one of those funny goals where, you know, you see it in the moment and it just looks like a tip in. You don't really think. And then you see it in slow motion and you kind of go, Jesus, how did he, like the hand-eye on that was insane.
It's just a naturally talented player. And I think that's proven the point of why you kind of want Pia Suter on the second power play unit because, you know, we'll fast forward to Boston later. But that gives you special teams depth that you didn't have before either. And Pia Suter's been good on the power play, as you mentioned before.
Yep.
And now imagine that same efficiency, but in both power play lines. It really helps for the Vancouver Canucks. At least that was very displayable in Carolina. But man, the shorthand.
Well, hold on. Carolina. So, you know, it wasn't the best game they've played this year, but again, the sort of level of grit that they sort of displayed, even though I know it's such a cliche, but that bend but didn't break thing. But I mean, man, Carolina came on strong, and we held in, and the Demko piece of that was interesting too, because I didn't think those were great goals that were let in the first couple, but boy, when we have a 1 or 2 goal lead and the pressure's on, he really seems to play. It's like it's a different level, and it's interesting because you would think, well, why can't you play like that all the time? But I guess it's just something about the challenge and the pressure of that moment where somehow he's able to just and you can almost feel it. Like it's almost like visceral. Like you sort of feel like, oh shit, he's in that zone. They're not scoring shit.
Yep.
Like you just can feel it. Now we can contrast that to the Boston game, which I Canucks Nation as usual is melting down. I don't know if you saw any of my tweets about it last night, but because people were tweeting at me and I don't know, I was strangely calm about the whole thing. Let's not forget, we've had a few games this year where we kind of shit the bed. That Toronto game, the first game in Toronto, which, they're as much of a nemesis to us as the Boston Bruins. We don't have the Stanley Cup history, but still the hatred between those fan bases. The St. Louis game that we lost right over the holiday break, and then this Boston game. And it's funny, maybe I'm spoiled this year and have a different outlook, but my reaction was, this is just like those games. Toronto came back here after we lost to them, and we kicked their ass.
Statement games.
I think, and we play Boston soon. I think it's in 2 Saturdays here, an afternoon game. Yeah. And you know what? We're going to win that game. I have this strange confidence that I have never had before. I hope I don't get fucked having that confidence, but it feels like a different team. I was disappointed last night. It does hurt to lose to Boston. I'm not going to say it doesn't, but I don't know. It didn't feel like the end of the world to me.
It didn't. The only thing that, and this is the only thing that really frustrates me, is the shorthanded goals against. I think that's unacceptable.
I knew the game was over when they scored that second goal. I was like, okay, it's going to be one of those nights.
Because I usually have a bedtime. It's I start my day super early. I'm just a giant fat baby at that point. But in that sense, I stay up for the games, watch the games, or record the games the night before and watch it in the morning before I head here. And as soon as I don't know if it was a road trip or the flight from Carolina to Boston, what it was, but it was just a lazy power play. It was just not great. That Pettersson drop-off pass for Hughes, I get it. Both of them are space makers, but Boston, and this is a team we were not expecting to be in the top 5 at all after Bergeron and Krejci officially retired.
Yep.
And so they had an extra amp up. And Linus Ullmark did what Demko did, and that's, okay, we have a lead. Just make the necessary saves. Plain and simple. And the reason why I don't overthink stats, I'm not too much of a numbers guy, and the reason, and I don't like it, and Gretzky said this in an intermission on TNT. He said, Grant Fuhr's numbers, if any kid looks at them now, they'll go, boy, this goalie sucks. But he made the saves when he needed to make the saves. Yep. And that's why Gretzky will always say Grant Fuhr is one of the best goaltenders I ever played with. Mind you, Gretzky didn't play with a lot of goalies. Nope. But in that sense, I do agree with him. And that's what Linus Ullmark did for the Bruins, because I thought after the second half of the game, 10-minute mark of the second period and onward, Canucks had a lot of momentum. It was just not the guys you wanted to get the chances. Pia Suter was getting those chances. I know Miller had a couple of shots, and then they started crashing the net a little bit more. I thought the bottom 6 played great again. They did their job. Yep. They're just not goal scorers.
Yep.
And that's my takeaway from the Boston game. And it's kind of weird. It looked like Tocchet was, overthinking it, or or he got outcoached by Jim Montgomery because he was starting his third line in the second and third period.
Right. Well, but the thing about Tocchet, I think, is, boy, is he ever a message sender. So much of what he does seems to be about sending messages to his, whether it's sitting Kuzmenko or whether it's, he's not afraid to sit someone. He's not afraid to reward someone. And so I have mixed feelings about that. He's been so good, and he's read this team so well this year. And I refuse to let one, shitting of the bed, affect my confidence in the team. We're still a great team. We're still number 1 in the NHL. Let's see what happens on Saturday, because this has also been a team, at least this year, if not in previous years, who have shown an uncanny ability to not shit the bed 2 games in a row. So, and this weekend's weird because it's 2 early afternoon games.
Yeah.
I can't remember who's the second one. Detroit?
So it's going Detroit, and I believe Sunday is going to be an early game against Florida. I'll just double check that.
Is it Florida?
I don't think it's
right?
No, it's Washington. It's Washington.
Okay, so
Sunday is against the Capitals, but that's
this should be 2 wins. This should be 2 wins. Detroit's a weird one because they seem. I mean, the first loss of the year for us was Detroit in Detroit, and we kind of got our ass kicked. But they're without Kane.
Yeah, they're without Kane due to a what everyone's reporting just as a lower body injury on IR. But they're not a bad team.
No, they're not a bad team.
They're not a bad team. I think they're a streaky team, but they're not a bad team.
I'm having a brain fart. Who's their goalie?
Alex Lyon will be starting. Alex Lyon has been getting most of the starts actually out of the 2. So Alex Lyon's expected to be starting on Saturday. And you know, he was viral because he made this face. I don't know if you remember, but Florida playoffs last year when he played the first round against the Bruins, he made that weird face towards the cameras all the time.
Right.
Which was this.
Yeah.
And I
it was weird. It was more just weird.
Yeah, it was more just weird. I guess he was trying to be funny, but it was weird. But yeah, he'll be most likely starting against the Canucks on Saturday. But look, Moritz Seider, Dylan Larkin, Alex DeBrincat, then you have, you know, some of your other guys like Andrew Kopp performing well. However, I just don't think they're going to beat the Canucks. I can't imagine a scenario. And maybe, you know, I'll be eating my words next week when we record. But, you know, when it comes to looking into the future scheme of things, I just think we're too deep of a roster for Detroit to handle.
Yep.
And B is even if you gain a 1-goal lead heading into the third, you know that your defense is going to lock it down.
Well, plus this is a team that does, I mean, at least this year, you know, seem to have a real sense of pride. I mean, I think, you know, they haven't, whenever they've gotten their ass kicked this year, I mean, if somebody wants to tell me I'm wrong on this stat, but I mean, have we lost 2 in a row this year?
I can't recall if you have lost 2 in a row.
But if I just lose it, because listen, the Boston game was an embarrassment, and I just don't. They're going to come out fucking mad. I think they better.
You have an angry defense. Ian Cole is not a nice guy.
No.
Like Shane O'Brien actually said it best on Missing Curfew when he said, "Ian Cole, I get it, 6'1", but he plays big." And the one thing I loved seeing in the Carolina game was Zadorov and Ian Cole absolutely demolishing anyone who tried going for those.
Yeah, because that bodes well for the playoffs.
Yeah, and that bodes well for the playoffs. Now, the Boston game, Boston's a much bigger forward group, so it's a little bit tougher. But my biggest pet peeve is when big defensemen who can't really skate well take shots and then it ricochets around and that was Tyler Myers for me against the Bruins. I'm sorry to circle back to the Bruins but game. It was just one of those things that I'm like, Tyler, if you hit the net, you are worth every dollar of your contract because of the amount of opportunities he gets as like the trailer defenseman.
And he has scored a couple this year doing that. But yeah, I don't know, man. Everything was just off in that game, and it felt that way. And I do mean it. Like the second that we gave up that shorthanded goal, I was like, okay, not our night. I can already, and I wouldn't always say that. Like we've shown an ability to come back from behind this year, but I felt it. I just felt like, okay, this one's not ours. And I sort of mentally was already in Detroit.
Checked out.
I was in Detroit at that point.
You mentally checked into the next game.
Yeah, I was.
When it comes to, you know, this, 10:30 a.m. for Sunday against Washington, Super Bowl Sunday. Everyone's going to be.
Oh, that's why they did it that way.
Yeah. And, you know, because obviously if you try to schedule a game at the same time as the Super Bowl, they're going to pick the Super Bowl once in a year, probably one of the biggest sporting events of the year as well. But when it comes to Sunday, early morning game, you're at home, so you don't have to worry about traveling back and forth. Yep. So that's fine. Washington has that issue, not you. Am I excited to see Ovechkin come to Vancouver? Yes. Very excited to see Ovechkin come to Vancouver because this might be.
That game's not in Vancouver, though.
Is it not? I thought it was a back-to-back home stand.
No. These are both on the road.
Both on the road.
We don't play here again till Detroit next week.
Oh my! Oh, okay,
yes.
So that's going to be a rough mental road
Oh,
trip.
this is
yeah.
yeah.
Saturday.
Although we had that back-to-back earlier this year where we won both. And was it like Ottawa and...
It would have been...
I don't know. They've been okay this year on doing those back-to-backs that are earlier in the afternoon.
Yeah.
So we've done okay. But no, this is not at home.
Oh,
this
okay.
Is, these are both on the road. And then I think there's one more game after that. And then Thursday here is Detroit.
Okay. Well, that road trip's going to be back-to-back on the road is always a little tough, but I personally think that it should be a good back-to-back win just because of the depth of the roster in general. I'm excited to see. I'm a big Nils Allman and Dakota Joshua fan. I'm all in on them. That forecheck can wear down any line. Like, I think I messaged you about it at the Leafs game, but they just bullied the Matthews line when they played Toronto, and they were bullies to the top cores of these big teams. And that made way for Pettersson, Miller, and now hopefully more from Lindholm.
And they've been our most consistent line all year. I mean, they haven't been our most productive because they don't quite have the skill level. But you know what? If the other top lines had the same consistency that they have, we'd be even.
Exactly.
Yeah. So I'm with you on that. I agree with that. And that has been the most fun line this year to watch. Like it's,
Yep.
And again, that also bodes well for the playoffs. So, it was really in a weird kind of way, our top players who kind of shit the bed in Boston.
It was, when you're the top guys facing the top guys of other team, that's always going to be the struggle for you. That's why some coaches will force their third lines or fourth lines to start a period. So you try to get those mismatches, but it was top line against top line. Those shorthanded goals against just kind of killed any momentum we could have had earlier in the game.
Well, as soon as they scored, the camera panned to Petey. And like, you could just see it on he's funny because he doesn't say a lot, but his facial expressions
say a lot more.
They really do. And you could just like, maybe that was what made me go, okay, we're done tonight.
It pissed me off the most that Marchand got a goal. Like I hate Marchand with the passion. My favorite meme that I've ever seen is this Halifax bar with those chalkboards you lay on the street, and it says, Sidney Crosby, free beers. Nathan McKinnon, 50% off beers. Brad Marchand, plus 50% free for beers. And so I'm like,
they don't even like him, and he's from there.
Yeah, and he's from there.
Yeah, but I'll tell you something. I'd take him on my team.
Anyone would love an aggregator that can score goals.
100%.
Especially with how big our defense are. Like he would run his mouth, no problem, knowing that he has the door off.
But it's
Myers,
funny. It's funny because like the Canucks fan base is so unforgiving.
Yeah.
And I took we work with a digital artist called Fuck Render, and he's not a huge hockey fan, but he really likes hockey, and he's been getting into it more. And I took him to a game last year, and it was Boston. And, every time Marchand, oh no, you know who it was? No, it was Boston. Every time Marchand touched the puck, of course, the whole crowd
booed.
Boo. And he's like, so why are they booing? And I said, well, it's kind of something that happened 11 years ago. He's like, you're telling me they're still booing about something that happened 11 years ago? I said, listen, man, this fan base, I'm like, now he's retired, obviously, but, Duncan Keith got booed, for elbowing Daniel Sedin in the head in the 2010.
Yeah.
Like, and 10 years later, he's on a different team. He's not even on Chicago anymore.
No.
And what's happening? He's, sorry, I'm looking at the phone there. He's getting booed like a decade later. And I don't know, it's the Canuck fan base is so weird. Like, for some reason, like I said, I just wasn't. People were trying to get me riled up on Twitter last night, and it just wasn't working. Like
people were just trying to poke you a little bit, and it just. Well, you know what? How? Like why? Because you just even after the game, you look at the standings. You're like, oh, look at that, we're in the top 3 in the league. So much your poking can do at that point. You know what I'm saying? Like if you're gonna poke, you poke at losers. Don't poke at the top 5 teams in the league.
Well, if we lose 5 in a row right now, and then you're poking at me, I'm going to probably poke back. And I wasn't even poking back or being like, oh, fuck you, we're number 1 in the league. I was just like, okay, have your fun. It's fine. I'm good. I'm feeling
Just one
okay.
game.
So yeah, it is just one game. And like I said, I would actually be pretty surprised if we don't bounce back in both of these games. And if we come out of this, if we win Saturday, if we win Sunday, suddenly we've won 3 out of 4 on a road trip, and it's pretty hard to be upset about that. And for God's sake, you're not going to win every fucking game. So
exactly,
relax, everybody, please.
Like, summarize what we said in our first episode. Just enjoy it.
Yes,
the boys just need to party.
Yes,
when you win, celebrate. When a goal is scored, scream at the top of your lungs. My landlord made a complaint when.
What were you screaming?
When Lindholm scored on the Carolina game, I yelled fairly loud. And landlord comes knocking on the door afterwards. He's like, "Are you watching the game?" I said, "Yeah." He's like, "Oh, okay." Closes the door, goes back upstairs, understands. So enjoy those moments.
Well, it also depends what you're yelling, because if it's like, yes, that's one thing. If it's like, fuck yeah, that's another thing. You gotta.
Yeah, no.
Because I swear a lot at games, and I'm not, it's just my default setting.
No, but you're not like loud or obnoxious.
Well, I mean, a couple of times. So, because I have season's tickets, the people next to us also have season's tickets.
Yeah.
So, and it's a very lovely family, a woman and her kid, and he's maybe, I'm going to say 7 or 8 years old. Funny kid too, big fan. And he eats so much during the game. It's like they're ordering. It's like this a skinny little kid, and I'm just like, another hot dog, eh? Wow. But I always feel a little bit bad because I'll be like, fucking dead. And then I'm like looking over at the mom going, sorry. And, I don't know. I don't think she cares, but yeah, But what else has been going on in Canuckland? I know you had mentioned before we started the sort of scuttlebutt going around.
The funny thing is you mentioned hot dogs.
Yes.
And now we're getting to the hot dog king himself.
Yes.
Phil the Thrill Kessel.
Yes.
On Talkett's radar.
Is that really his nickname?
One
sarcastic
year, yeah, sarcastic name. 1 year with the Leafs, he had 40 or 41 goals 1 year, and we were like, oh, Phil the Thrill. But you know how Leafs fans can be, overhype everything, give nicknames to the worst, like to nobody. Like James Reimer was Optimus Rhyme named after the Transformers. I hate it. But anyways, so Phil the Thrill Kessel, a.k.a. Hot Dog Man, a.k.a. eats hot dogs out of a Stanley Cup.
Yep.
On Talkett's radar. I don't know how I feel about that. It's really weird because I really like the bottom 6 we have. Unless you sign him as a healthy scratch, then maybe.
I have mixed feelings about it too, because, and listen, for all the jokes that have been made about the guy, he's also got 2 Stanley Cups
with the Pittsburgh Penguins,
and has put up with a lot of crap in his career. And there's that incredible clip of him getting pissed at who's that guy everybody hates in Toronto, the journalist, Steve. And I don't know if it was him
he's from it's.
The guy who does the Toronto Sun guy.
Yeah, it was a Toronto Sun.
Steve, whatever. I can't remember the guy's last name, but it may not even have been him. But it's where they're saying, the coach had been fired. I think would it have been Ron Wilson? I can't remember.
It would have been Randy Carlyle.
Or it would have been Randy Carlyle.
It was post 2013.
And they sort of say to him, like, "Hey, the word is you're a hard guy to coach." Do you know the clip I'm talking about?
Yeah.
And Kessel's like, what, are you saying it's my fault that he got fired?
Yeah.
And then he's like, this guy's a fucking idiot. Like, he's like, and
yeah.
So he's taken a lot of abuse in his career. And I kind of get it. He's not the most in shape guy. I don't think conditioning is his thing.
Well,
but could he even play the stuff that Talkett, like that's the part where I'm a little confused, because Talkett has been so about you buy into the system or fuck off. Yeah. And let's face it, that's what happened to Kuzmenko. Nobody's saying he was a bad player, but he did not fit into that system. He just didn't. Therefore, any skill he had was being wasted because it didn't work in that system. Is Phil Kessel going to be? Do you see Phil Kessel forechecking?
No, and as a Leafs fan, he never had to forecheck. He had James Van Riemsdyk and Tyler Bozak to do that for him, right? And then when you look at him in Pittsburgh, you're playing on the third line with the HBK line, Hagelin, Bonino, Kessel. With the Canucks, he, he's a shooter from the outside. That's always been his signature thing, but I don't know what else there could be. I mean, that's what Mikheyev's there for, right? Mikheyev is a guy who streaks down the wing, and if he has a lane, he'll shoot it. But man, he just needs to put the puck in the net. That's a separate topic.
Yeah.
But Phil Kessel, that's all he is really is a shooter. He's a streaky shooter.
Well, let's face it. Mikheyev isn't scoring, and Mikheyev's been invisible for fucking 3 months. So I mean, I mean, who knows? Maybe that's what they're thinking. Maybe they're thinking, let's unload Mikheyev and bring in Kessel. It's not. Although Mikheyev does have attributes and contributions that aren't super obvious unless you're sort of going to every game and really watching.
Mikheyev, he's an amazing skater.
Yes,
and that also makes him a great asset on a penalty kill.
Yes.
The problem is $4.5 million, and and Tocchet's not throwing him under the bus just yet. He's kept him with Pettersson and Lindholm the entire Bruins game. I thought he would at least flip some of the lines around. He flipped the rotation.
Yeah,
but and Mikheyev, it didn't work. It's not working. I think Petey needs a secondary shooter or a secondary forechecker for Lindholm and Petey to share the shooting chances, because. To say it the best way, and before the Edmonton Oilers went on that massive streak that recently ended, I had a conversation with a friend. It was just a random conversation with a friend, and I remember when McDavid was on a bit of a cold streak, he said, he's Connor McDavid, he's the best player, and they'll just acquire anyone and he'll make it work. I said, you shouldn't be looking for players to pass to McDavid. You should be looking for players for McDavid to pass to.
Yeah.
And I think that's what Pettersson's missing when you dismantle the Lotto line. And so it'll be interesting to see what Tocchet comes up with next. Remember, Elias Lindholm has center experience, and I'm pretty excited for the next 2 games for that reason.
Yep. So am I. Yeah, but boy, if they got Kessel, I'm not sure how I feel about it. There's been some other trade, like, there's no way we're getting Tanev because at this point we can't afford Tanev and it wouldn't make sense. But who's the other person I keep hearing? Kessel, Tanev, and he's on Anaheim, I think, the guy in my brain.
Cam Fowler?
No. No.
I do know Troy Terry's name has been shopped around a bit with other teams, but he's
Vetrano.
relatively young. Oh, Frank Vetrano.
Is he Anaheim?
Yeah, he's in Anaheim.
That's who I
Former
keep hearing.
Frank Vetrano would be a really good asset to have on the bottom six because he's a finisher, right? When he has the opportunities, and he's a grinded out finisher. Like, we have to forget, this guy had a pretty decent goal streak to start off the season as well.
Yep.
Or point streak to start off the season. And I think Frank Vetrano would be a perfect fit in the Canucks scheme right now as far as the forward group is concerned. Number one is, he's a streaky goal scorer, but that's an extra scoring depth you need because look at Mikheyev, not always going to score. Nils Höglander, love the kid, but you're not always going to get goals from him. Connor Garland, love the grinding, not always going to get goals from him. So you want to add as much scoring depth as possible, which I understand to a certain extent. But if I was forced to choose Vetrano or Phil Kessel, I'm taking a trade for Frank Vetrano.
Yep, I probably would agree. But it's interesting because, like, Rutherford has really clearly a guy who likes to go back to things he's had success with.
Yeah.
Which was, I'm assuming, why why isn't Kessel playing? Nobody picked him up.
Nobody picked him up. It's, after that, ironically enough, after that Cup season with Vegas, because he was on that roster, just a healthy scratch.
Oh, yeah.
Vegas gave him a lot of chances. They put him in for a decent amount of games, and he just didn't fit into the scheme. Did he play a single playoff game? No, I don't think he played a single playoff game at all.
If you don't play a playoff game, but you played in the regular season, do you still get your name on the cup?
Yes, because Michael Del Zotto has a Stanley Cup ring from being on the St. Louis Blues roster.
Oh.
So Michael Del Zotto has a Stanley Cup ring with this 2018 St. Louis Blues. I believe it's 2018.
And he didn't play in the playoffs?
He didn't. He didn't play in the playoffs because the Blues were healthy in the playoffs. And Jordan
Del Zotto, I haven't heard that name in a while.
Yeah, Tank Commander Del Zotto is what I call him because he's a former Canuck, and then he completely sucked and was getting top 4 minutes.
Yeah, he wasn't great, but I mean that's the what the last 8 years have been like. I mean, it's I was saying that in the last episodes, like one of the big differences for me this year is that the defense doesn't scare the shit out of me every single night. And, he was one of those guys who we brought in, didn't pay him a lot of money, and he just wasn't good. Like, he just wasn't reliable. And anyway.
It was a little bit of it's a mixed week prior to this recording. The Carolina game, the Bruins game, kind of some questions along the wing. I get it, because Lindholm and Miller are both hybrid center wingers.
Yep.
So you always have the option to flip them. But as you look forward to the next couple games, as we mentioned earlier, do you still feel okay with the present team right now, or would you actually consider, maybe we do need to make it?
I mean, one game, isn't it? I mean, my God, it's just one loss, for Christ's sake. I mean, even though it was to a team, I know, and that's what hurts.
That's why it hurts. It was against.
But like I said, it
Bruins.
was like when we lost to Toronto earlier in the year, and
Yeah.
it was the same kind of feeling of like, oh God, maybe we're not good. Maybe we really don't belong up there. Don't forget also the culture of winning, of being a team that's a good team. That's a mental thing as well.
Mhm.
And Boston and Toronto now have, many years, like the current groups
Yeah.
have 4 or 5 years of success. We don't. I mean, none of our players are used to success because
No.
we haven't had any success, unless you count the bubble. I mean, but that was whatever. That was just such a weird year. I don't really count that as much of anything, but we don't have a culture of winning. We're starting to have a culture of winning. It makes all the difference. And I mean, I still remember back to the Sedin, the classic Sedin teams where we had that culture.
Yeah.
And you went to a game with a pretty reasonable expectation that we might win, which was gone for so long. And I refused to let one game. That's why last night on Twitter, I mean, it wasn't like I didn't even have to make an effort. It wasn't like I was going, I'm not going to, show anybody that I wasn't pissed off.
Yeah.
I was disappointed. Okay. That would have been a nice game to win. We didn't win. Oh, well, Detroit. I mean, that's it. Like, that's where my brain went. So if we lose one or both of these games on the weekend, I might have a different demeanor when we record next week. I might be feeling a little bit differently about it. And when we record next week, it'll be after that Detroit home game.
Yes.
So there will have been a few more games. I'm feeling fine about this team. I'm absolutely feeling fine.
I'm not hitting the panic button. As a person from Toronto, do I find it funny that a little bit that the Canucks lost to the Bruins 4-0? Yes. Do I find it funny that JVR I think he got a point on there. He got an assist. 1 assist. Yes. But at the end of the day, if I'm any Canucks fan right now, I'm not hitting the panic button whatsoever.
What made me laugh last night, though, and I couldn't tell if it wasn't somebody I know, but somebody was tweeting because Calgary won.
Yeah.
And they're like, well, clearly Calgary won that trade. I'm like, are you insane? That's 2 games. Like, we're 1-1, they're 2-0. I don't think you can quite draw that conclusion yet. Nobody's going to know who won that trade until we see what happens with that draft pick and with that kid. Then we'll know.
Yeah. Yeah, then we'll know who won that trade. But as of right now, the Canucks are going to make the playoffs, knock on wood, as we said last episode. And, I wanted to reemphasize, I'm here for the Canucks. No Leafs jersey surprises. I had only one Leafs reference. That's it.
It's all good.
But no Leafs jersey surprises.
I can deal with that. I can deal with the occasional reference to the Leafs.
And we got this great prize giveaway now.
This lovely fucking windbreaker that looks like shit, feels like shit, but does have a Canuck logo on it. And it still has its tag. That's got to give it some value. It's like when you collect bobbleheads and once you take them out of the package, they're not worth anything. You got to leave them in the original packaging. So we'll figure out some contesting thing. There it is. It is a 47 brand forward for the action fan is what it says. And then there's a bunch of shit on the back here, which I can't quite read. And most importantly, it does have your Vancouver Canucks logo right there. And we'll have to think of it's machine washable.
It's the Shopping Channel reviews.
Yeah.
With Jonathan Simpkins.
It's weird.
The old
fabric's-
Rogers STC. It's like, actually, it still exists, STC,
this
which is
fabric's
shocking.
Weird, man.
It's
It's stretchy. Oh, yuck. It's It's just not a good thing.
A yucky
Sorry, it's a
giveaway.
great thing that we're going to give away, and you're going to fucking love it.
I think, yeah, we kind of touched off of all of it. Hot Dog Man potentially coming to Vancouver. We got over Mikheyev's woes and the next couple games, and I'm still feeling good when I watch Canucks games nonetheless. And I think this road trip is going to end off on a high note.
You know, one thing I will say, do we know when Susie's coming back?
It's still undisclosed, sorry.
It's a hand injury.
It's a hand injury. And the thing is
She must have broken a bone.
Yeah. And the thing is, if you look at your hands and feel your hand, you feel all these mini bones and stuff like that in your knuckles. And just rub your finger along your hand like this, you'll feel all these mini tendons. I remember a friend who actually broke his hand, broke his hands in a fight. And
there's so many bones that have to heal.
Just so many bones that have to heal.
Poor guy. Fuck, what a tough year he's had injury-wise. I mean, I always somehow feel better about injuries like that than lower body injuries, because sometimes with the leg, because I mean, even with Mikheyev, I mean, let's not forget he's coming off of a major fucking injury, and I know it's been a while and he's been back, but you know, we're talking about a game where it's about milliseconds, and for a guy who was arguably, I mean, maybe other than McDavid, the fastest skater in the league, you know, even if he's lost the slightest little step because of that injury, makes a big difference.
It does.
I feel weird about him, because I like him. I do like him. I like the way he plays. But boy, he just hasn't seemed very effective.
The lack of finishing. It's the lack of finishing. I loved him in Toronto when he was a Maple Leaf. Sorry again for that reference. You can all hate me later online. I don't care. But at the end of the day, he has all the qualities to possess what a good player is, but you have to finish. And you don't have any excuses no more because you're playing on the top line with Pettersson and Lindholm. And even if you were to play on the second line, say they do a swap between Suter and Mikheyev, or they do a swap between Besser and Mikheyev, you're still playing with a good team nonetheless, good line mates. So I think I'm really crossing my fingers that Mikheyev does well, because I don't think there's room for Hot Dog Man in Vancouver.
But it's funny, you don't people talk about it sometimes, if you're listening to the post game shows, like the Canucks post game show, you will hear the occasional caller Mikheyev was invisible again. But it's funny, I feel like I've never seen the guy interviewed. Do they? Is his English horrible?
His English is really bad. Yeah, his English is pretty.
Because I wonder what he has to say about. I'm just kind of curious what he's saying, or if he thinks it's a problem, or if I just haven't really heard much about that.
I mean, they do have Russian scouts. They could have a translator set up for him. So that's definitely something very interesting. I'd like to hear from Mikheyev as well as for what he thinks his game is like. But yeah, we'll see what happens. I mean, hey, we crossed off all the huge topics. Hot Dog Man might make his way to Vancouver.
Wouldn't that be something, huh?
That would be pretty good. People are throwing glizzies on the ice for a hat trick.
Yeah,
that would be pretty good. That's a dream
I don't
scenario.
see it, man. I don't. I keep trying in my brain to figure out how that makes sense, and I don't think it makes sense. And I mean, again, I kind of respect Rutherford's the fact that he goes back to the same well where he's had success, but
not in this scenario.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I just don't see it.
Yeah, not in this scenario. But nonetheless, still pretty stoked. All in all,
still pretty stoked.
I think this was a fun episode. We got two fat guys in the Canucks. That's another name for the podcast, I guess, after the opening conversation.
At least we didn't go on about the Jew-Muslim thing this time, which I wonder how people are going to react to that.
Hey, no. This is Canada. That's all it is. It's unity amongst cultures. It's for everyone. That's all it is. It's for the bros. It's for everyone.
How many Muslim players are in the NHL?
Only one.
Nazem?
Yeah, Nazem Kadri.
Is there not another one?
There's not another one.
That's strange to me.
Because I always was like, even as a kid, I was like, we got one in there. Let's go. Yes.
But that can't be the only. Is there other ones in history?
I've Googled it as a kid so many times, and
there was a
has been the
Canuck.
pop up.
Are you sure there was that Canuck? God, this is going back to the 70s. I don't have my phone, so I can't even Google it. But I think Eddie Hatoum, Hatoum. Look him up real quick. I could be so wrong about it. I'm going to look like a jerk here now, but I could have sworn that he was Muslim.
Ed Hatum.
Am I getting that wrong?
He's Lebanese born.
Lebanese player.
Yeah, he's a Lebanese. Funny enough, he played for the Vancouver Blazers.
Right.
And the Canucks. So he was part of the expansion draft.
Well, we'll have to look into that. We'll do our research.
Yeah, we'll do our research. He's definitely Lebanese.
I wonder how many other Lebanese players have ever been. Lebanese born he is?
Yeah, he's Lebanese
Wow.
born.
See, that part I forgot. That's unusual for the NHL.
That is, it started from the WHA from Lebanon to here. That's not bad. Producer Alexi Johnson will laugh at this because she's part Lebanese. And if you were to see a picture of him, you'd look at the eyebrows and you'd be like, I get it.
Oh, you're part Lebanese? I didn't know that.
Yeah,
and there, your mother was getting people deported back to Lebanon for a living. That's such an inside joke that it's not even. I'm not even going to start to. It's such an inside joke. Sorry, everybody. That's
not a sorry. That's a perfect note to end on.
Yeah.
Canuckle heads heartbroken since 1970.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Listen, everybody. We'll see you next week. Hopefully, with 3 victories under our belt and feeling great, and or you're going to see us, or at least see me, suicidal. So
no, that's not going to be the case.
No, I'm going to maintain my confidence, and thank you for watching, and listening, and we'll see you next week.